In 1971, President Nixon took the United States off the gold standard, meaning the dollar could no longer be converted to gold. Since then, the world has operated under a system of money called fiat currency. The dollar, pound, euro, and every currency in the world are all fiat. Fiat currency is paper currency that a government has declared to be legal tender but can't be redeemed for gold or silver. Fiat money is essentially nothing more than a piece of paper worth something only because the government says it is. Its only value comes from the good faith by the people that use it, to accept it as payment. The problem with a fiat system is that the government is free to print as much money as they want without the burden of finding gold to support the amount they're creating. Thus, they can create billions out of thin air and pump it into circulation, making the money already out there worth less and less. From 1971 to 2008, the amount of dollars in circulation increased by 17 times. This has resulted in an 81% fall in purchasing power. Ever wonder why all those goods and services cost more now than they did when you were younger? Now you know. The US has all the characteristics of other currencies that have collapsed in history.
Together, no one suffers alone.
Together, no one suffers alone.
We can show people it's really not just one of us. We are all got to come together in this. Together, nobody suffers alone. Hello, everybody. I hope everybody is doing well out there. Enjoying the weather. I decided to do things a little different tonight and take it outside. The weather's beautiful and it's actually really good for a lot of different things that we go through as humans, including trauma. So I apologize. I was unable to put this out sooner, the link, so I'm doing it as we start. First and foremost, I would like to thank, of course, Mind of the Storm for generously doing so much for us as a grassroots movement and to make sure that we as victims, survivors, families left behind, and at times, I hope that people are able to get on here and, if you're curious or you have real questions and you're on here for the right reasons, we would like to have you also join us. So the topic tonight is going to be trauma. But there's a few ground rules before we start. And that is, if you are in any way, shape, or form triggered, please do yourself a favor and please disconnect and go do something self-care. It's very important. This is always going to be here and you can always come back to this if there's something you feel that is necessary. Everything that we say on this podcast, there's a phrase that if it doesn't apply, let it fly, because when it comes to trauma and it comes specifically to trauma, I'm sorry, I'm overstepping again. So my brain fog has cleared quite a bit, pretty significantly as of yesterday morning. I still am struggling, so I do want to make you aware. I feel like I should make you aware that if I begin to stutter or I lose my place, I am working really hard to try and stay on track. So with that being said, I have a pen and a piece of paper here. So if you see me writing, it's so that I can stay on track. If you are on here and in any way, shape, or form, your comments come off offensive, we don't take the time. The discussion's cut, you're removed, and you are banned from not just this podcast, but all future podcasts. We don't ask questions on this podcast. This is for the victims, by the victims, for the survivors, for those that have not made it, for those that are living in like the vicarious trauma, the indirect trauma, so I thought tonight I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach. So if you could kindly bear with me, I would like to share this a little bit more. since it did not work out for me earlier. Which is right now and today, it's just not very uncommon. But I do appreciate you bearing with me. So I thought it was important that we, in discussing trauma, that we really get down to some. I wanted to give some actual. This is. I will discuss some of the things that involve my personal trauma. And please feel free if you want to add any comments. That's what this is about. Like, if you're just here because maybe you know somebody and you just want to try and figure out something you might be able to do to help them, you can always, by the way, reach out to our email address, which I will get for you in a moment, because honestly, this is part of the stuff that I'm working on. I do know my email address, but right now I have to write it down. Anyhow, we're not just here to, as much as this podcast is meant for those of us who have experienced any type of domestic violence. I mean, from any form, from family, from child abuse to, how that maybe, like my situation, went straight from only knowing child abuse to straight into adult abuse, which has been ongoing life of medical abuse. And, it's not just about that. So tonight we're just going to talk about trauma in general, because I think it's a topic that in the society that we are currently living in, I have my own kind of thoughts on some things, and I will let you know what is actually something that is factual information, and I will let you know when I get to where my personal thoughts come into play. So that, just to give you guys a little bit. So this is off of the medical news today. It's an accurate, current article. And so people understand what trauma is. Trauma is not, so people classify people, and we need to stop categorizing people in all ways and senses, honestly. But trauma is actually what happens. That is the effect of another situation. And let's use, I don't know, let's use something as simple as being bullied at work or something. And you feel and people are witnessing it, and you talk about it even maybe with your coworkers and blah, 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 Again, we worry about report. But you and I may handle that completely different. Nobody's brain's built the same. Everybody is born, for the most part. We are born with what we need to live and heal and survive. And we are given that at birth, if we're fortunate. So trauma is actually the effect of it. So I'm going to read this to you. It's and there's different types of trauma. And I would like people to understand that. So I have questions, but I'm going to get to those at the end. So trauma is a response to an event that a person finds highly stressful. So, for instance, let's use my I can only speak for myself. Let's use my current situation and the stress I'm dealing with, not being able to get simple prescriptions sent properly, written, anything, shape, or form. That has affected me in a way. The stress I'm dealing with, not being able to get simple prescription. Apologize. It has affected me in a way that is really kind of unbelievable. But it's not necessarily going to traumatize somebody in my situation the same way. It really has to do a lot with things that we forget about or we have suppressed. And, the reality of it is that, well, let's get to the numbers. So, the types of trauma. I'm going to tell you what the American Psychological Association of Trauma, and I'm going off of this. So trauma is an emotional response to a terrible event like an accident, rape, or natural disaster. However, a person may experience trauma as a response to any event they find physically or emotionally threatening or harmful. Meaning, you know how you use the word discretionary and legal? So, in the world that we're in currently and what we're dealing with, and, when it comes to being, first of all, to call somebody traumatized, if you're not a doc, it's rude. I'm just going to let you know, like, don't call me traumatized. And don't let me hear you call somebody else traumatized, like, to their face. Now, if we're speaking on clinical terms and we're in closed doors and we have the appropriate people there, that's one thing. But in society and in public, don't call people traumatized. It's really offensive. It's the negative connotation that comes from that is just don't do it. So I traumatized people. And so I wanted to go through basically the whole thing with trauma because I feel as though my thing with this was I wanted to show the numbers and I wanted to explain. So they have acute trauma, there's chronic trauma, and there's complex trauma. And then there's vicarious trauma. There's a lot of different types. And let me tell you what some of the symptoms are for trauma range from mild to severe. Some of the symptoms that people may not even realize or understand are connected to trauma because maybe we live, like myself, in a world of chaos. That's been my whole life, working very hard to get out of that, but it's still a comfort zone for me. So the point of making is, some of the factors how traumatic events affect a person, their characteristics, the presence of other mental health conditions. Remember that. Remember the mental health piece. Hold on. I would want to invite a few people. I'm not sure how to do that. Sorry. And some of the symptoms are the presence of other mental health conditions. Remember that being traumatized, that's an act. Telling me I'm traumatized is categorizing me. Trying to diagnose me, which, whatever. So traumatic events affects people's characteristics, the presence of other mental conditions, which means a lot of times trauma is not treated. That right there in the second symptom is what I ultimately want to get to, is the presence of other mental health conditions. So that states that the trauma is causing other mental health conditions. However, and I know this isn't 100, and I'm not speaking on behalf of everybody, but I do speak for a whole heck of a lot of people when I say this. When you have a traumatic event like the types that we discuss on this podcast, the presence of other mental health conditions are what people see. And then you are diagnosed. So once you're diagnosed, you can be treated forever. And I'm not going to make this about a specific entity or organization or any specific anybody. Just follow along with what I'm saying and you'll understand. So my question's been, why are we going straight to the mental health conditions for treatment instead of finding out if somebody has been traumatized? Previous exposure to traumatic events, the types and characteristics of events or events that they have witnessed, background and approach and handling emotions. They have emotional and psychological responses like denial, anger, fear, sadness, shame, confusion, anxiety, depression, numbness, guilt, hopelessness, irritability, difficulty concentrating. How many of you have been diagnosed with this, that, and the other? And it's the reality of it is it's really not real. It's a lot of it I'm understanding. Physical responses, digestive symptoms, headaches, fatigue, racing heart. I mean, these are all things that, again, when you're going into the hospitals or when you're going into these places to be seen, these are the things they're treating you for. They're not asking you the root. They're not saying is you can't really diagnose somebody. A diagnosis that's trauma can be treated. That's what I'm trying to share with you. Trauma actually can be treated, and again, it's like I said, the effects of different things on different people because of the way we're built or what our previous experiences have been. How frequent, how overlapping, have we ever had a chance to heal? There's so many factors that play into this, but so let me go to the numbers for you guys. Hold on. I sent all this to myself so I would have it prepared. So my question was, it has been for a while. People are being, I know people who are living in trauma who are actively being way overdiagnosed mental health wise. Mental health is needed in the beginning, but not to the extremes that it's being done at all. Hold on, let me pull this up. It's on let's see. How many people? I'm sorry, this is how I looked it up. And I don't care that we're doing this live and I'm showing you all this because it's actually really good, I think, for sometimes for people to see that I don't just, when I start talking about numbers and specifics, it's very important if you're going to be doing something of this nature that you share the information. And right now my phone has been very helpful. So how many people live with trauma in U.S.? Okay. So the following statistics are based on the U.S. population only. About 6 out of every 100 people, or 6% of the population, will have PTSD at some point in their lives. About 12 million adults in the United States have PTSD during a given year. And this is only a small portion of those who have gone through a trauma treatment, which means they had something, either perpetual exposure, they've done EMDR, they've done CBT plus. There's so many other factors, but when it comes to speaking about this, when it comes to trauma, depending on what your trauma's from, specific to domestic violence, there is no evidence-based program that they have been able to put together because all of our circumstances and situations are extremely different. So with that being said, like, what percentage so it says more than 70% of the respondents, they did a trauma and its aftermath. Boston University did this study, and traumatic events are a near ubiquitous human experience. A general population survey conducted in 24 countries showed more than 70% of respondents experienced a traumatic event, and 30.5% experienced 4 or more traumatic events. Now, take into mind, those traumatic events doesn't mean one time. It doesn't mean 12 times. It doesn't tell you how many times. These could be 2 traumatic events that have overlapped, and maybe one's at home and maybe one's in your own personal home, your family's home, and one, it's just really bad. Listen, having lived in a life of just filled and overloaded with trauma, and I look at my family, my bloodline family, and I think about them, and I think about just it's everybody just wants to, like, that's what I'm saying. We're being, so I guess how's it affected me. I don't remember not ever having trauma in my life. So I got really used to living in a world of chaos. And it wasn't until I left my more recent domestic violence situation that I realized I've lived in trauma for a majority of my life. And it's not necessarily like because every single opportunity or moment that I was awake, there was something chaotic or traumatic happening, but because it was all overlapping and I never had time to heal, and then they all the starting the fact that it started in the home, and then I was happier. I went and I willingly chose to be a street kid at 12, because I felt safer there. Like, so, like, I don't know, to be, I wasn't some, like, at that point in my life, like, I was just like 2 years in the public school. My life was in like complete turmoil. My parents had just divorced. That was the most traumatic event in my entire life. Um, because my mom went to nursing school and a year got my dad to pay for it. I told him that was the best thing he could ever did. Pay for her to get the hell out. However, the trauma from I was daddy's little girl and I'd sneak around. I was, once she got her halfway through her nursing, she was the last nursing. Anyway. Once she got halfway through, which was like a 2 year or whatever, she had divorce papers drawn up, and we like had to sit on that. Like, I had to watch that. I had to live an entire year hoping that this bitch failed her nursing boards. I didn't care about. I could have cared less as long as he was there, and that. But I didn't have any choice in any of this because by this time, I was very well listed as crazy, and I didn't have a chance in hell in life already. Once I was left in Middlewood, the trauma from that was my drug addiction started there. I was there for almost a year. I got angry one time. My mom started having them do the liquid lithium thing. This is how trauma's affected me. I was left there like 3 days shy of a year. And I'd never been on any medications prior to that. And then all of a sudden I got angry one time. So like 15 grown men picked me up in the air and like get me in solitary confinement. And he put this needle in my ass. All of a sudden everything was much better. So I had been there for a while. So I just every time they took me out of every time they put me in hog ties, 5-point restraints, whatever it was they did, I got out. So I get more of that stuff. Now I got out and I kept getting more of that stuff. It was different stuff, but I was getting it. And that's when my drug addiction started. That turned into me being like, I didn't fit any of that mold. And that turned into me being my mom's like, I would get these weird phone calls from kids crying about the drugs they've done. Like, who are you? I don't even know you. Like, what are you talking about? I would to the point, and then into the this went on and on. And I have a serious problem with female relationships. There, I said it out loud. First time I said it out loud, like in a real public setting, but because of my mom, I don't trust women. I'm working on it, and I have some really phenomenal women in my life right now. But if you want me to be 100% honest, there's that little, I just, I don't know. It's going to take time. I have had, because of child abuse, I was also molested in my home. I was abused sexually by my mother, not directly like touching me, but by not properly telling me and explaining to me what was happening to my body. And I felt like I was, thought I had disease. I thought my sexual areas were sick and that I didn't want nobody touching them. I was constantly smelling myself and touching, making sure I was dry because that meant I was sick. When in reality, these are things that are supposed to happen to a young girl's body. But it affected the rest of my life sexually to this day. This is what trauma does. There's led into a lot of activity that I've got pictures of me being gang raped, and I don't have any recollection of it. And it became a thing of at one point I've been a very promiscuous person my entire life. Um, Trust me, it's not promiscuous right now. Hey, Robert, thank you for joining. That I'm not today, but that just stopped. I mean, I needed attention. I needed attention. So I needed lovins. Really, it was on my terms. And so at that point at 12, like, and on, like, I didn't lose my virginity to 13, but that was a joke. Um, and I got pregnant and was forced to have an abortion. And that devastated and killed not just me, but the father, too. Things never were the same in either of our lives. Turned around, got pregnant with my daughter, and then she's white, but I thought she was, I'm not even gonna lie to you. She was one of two people. I told them both that she was theirs. And one of them, I still get phone calls to let me know when he's in town. He's in the feds right now, so I don't think he's getting out anytime soon. Which is good because he was not the father and there was a lot of money given. But this is part of the trauma. You go where you learn to go where you won. Look, bottom line is at 12, I had a choice. Join them, let them prostitute me out, or figure it out, try and figure it out. I'd be dead. So I joined them. It's called survival, not crime. And technically, is it crime? Domestic violence is crime, but technically it's not. It was survival. I'm not gonna say I'm not proud of. There's a lot of stuff that happens, and that unfortunately will never come onto any podcast, and for really good reasons. But my life led to that because of trauma. I had to be in control of everything. I had to make sure that my bills were paid. I didn't hand my daughter off to my parents to raise. They'll tell you otherwise. But they've destroyed my daughter. They've destroyed my relationship with my grandson. And all these years, I have just continuously protected these people because I had this thing in my head that and this is part of the trauma. What I don't have I can't cook. There's a lot of things I can't do right now that have affected me even having successful relationships. I don't get close to people real easy, and when I do, I blurt it all out. And trust me, I know that on all social media levels, y'all think that I'm out here just you see what's I put out there. Half of you don't even I think it's just entertainment sometimes because anyway, the point I'm making is I know, trust me, I am fully aware that you all think I say so much on these streets. I tell everybody my business. Da, 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 da. You guys have no idea. Really don't have a clue. And I understand why one would feel that way. But keep in mind that everybody's life is not the same. And so what you see and what you hear on outside of this podcast, that's my everyday life. So to me, that's not I don't put my life all over the streets because the stuff it's not all over the streets. Trust me when I tell you that. There's a lot of rumors out there. There's some that might be true, some that may not. But at this point in my life, it doesn't matter. I'm fighting through my trauma. It has led me through so many. I don't know how I'm alive. It sent me. I have attempted, and I'm not talking bullshit. I need attention type suicide attempts. Talking real fucking serious suicide attempts. As a matter of fact, we know on August, I think it was 19, I did an event for my live suicide. This is not a smile of pride. This is what happens when I get nervous. I giggle and I smile. I'm at a point now where I can talk about that a little more. But do you realize that trauma causes so much distrust? Specific, depending it, and it really. Listen, I wanted this to be so much more than about. I really want you guys to understand that take care of yourselves. Like, I am learning a lot of this stuff. I had no idea that a lot of what was happening to me was trauma. Like, I grew up believing I was afraid. I was on 30,000 milligrams of medication prescribed. I went to rehab and my family said I came home. Well, when I say family, anyway, when I came home, they said every time I was higher when I came home than when I went in. And they picked me up at the door. I did not get high. It was bad. It was really, really bad. It does. I agree with you, Christina. I absolutely agree with you. Um, and the most difficult part, I think, of this all is I think that trauma is really. I think that okay. So let me get to my point with the diagnosis is right, and then the idea of trauma. So I took this. I don't know how I got into this webinar. I was invited by some um, very high level retired intellectuals like who have done and worked in this field for a very long time. And I learned so much in there. And then, we have to, I don't know how it's done because listen, I'm not going to say I do it. I am still drawn. I am drawn away from the chaos, but I'm not. There's a piece of me that is still in the middle of it. Like, not necessarily like with my family or certain things, but there's other areas of my life that I've lived and well, I'm not doing anything illegal. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But, there's just some other areas of my life that I'm not going to really express on here because it's kind of like my guilty pleasures. Nobody gets hurt. It's just, I don't know. Sometimes we have to figure out how to get through our own trauma. And I'm going to just say this. This accident really was a blessing in disguise. I fully feel that no matter what the outcome is for me as far as the accident, when it comes to helping victims of domestic violence, I have a very, very good feeling that what I set out to do and what the people who have stood behind me and who have supported this podcast, who have helped me from day one when everybody in the state said I couldn't, and I said, why? Because you said so. So one of the things that I think we need more of are, I think that this whole police reform thing, right? And we all know that when we call the police, it's generally revictimization. So I'm not going to make this about organizations, and I said that I'm not here. That's not what I want to make tonight about. But the big push is to send. So, and I actually was. This was actually something I supported until the car accident, and until I saw this doctor, Dr. Vincent Schaller of Mid-Atlantic Concussion Physicians, M.A.C. Physicians. I think if not, go onto our YouTube or go onto Domestic Violence Ambassadors YouTube channel. They do have it there. I'm not speaking in third or second and first people. I have to do this for legal reasons. So with that being said, we need to be sending trauma therapists. We need to be sending trauma. I'm kind of really just. I've been working on trying to understand my own trauma a little more so that I can be a little more conscious of. So that I can be a little more conscious of why I am the way I am, in order to be able to, even if it's only one thing at a time, I can start to begin to work on that. And what I realize is my trauma is so deep that I'm going to be doing real serious appropriate. I'm taking trauma. I am going to be starting trauma therapy, and I will, as usual, make sure that it is visible so that everybody understands and sees what it's like. But what I believe, and I believe this to the depths of my soul and back, that what we need to be sending out, and I mean for, listen, um, there's a difference when you send someone medical, mental health to a traumatic event. I don't care if it's a shooting. I don't care if it's a stabbing. I don't care if it's domestic violence. I don't care what the circumstances are. By sending a mental health team, you're sending people into a situation who, in their head, that the word trauma will be used in their verbiage, but in their head, that's not. It's not there. They begin diagnosing people. Okay, this one's all over the place. He's got this. This one's he's calm. He's good. Oh wait, he's isolated. There's a bunch of already pre-diagnosing going on for mental health care. So mental health care is so trauma. To have a trauma team show up, a trauma team, people who are legally know how to take and decide if someone is traumatized or if they need a psych hospital. To send a mental health worker before the trauma team is kind of like putting the cart before the horse. Because if a mental health worker is there, they're going to have to put something on paper. Once you're diagnosed, that's lifelong. But you just experienced a shooting right in front of your house. You might need some, stuff for a little bit of depression, maybe some anxiety, sometimes maybe something to help you sleep, group support. But trauma can be treated. You're not crazy. And with the numbers that I said in the beginning of this, was it 70% of the population in the world is living in trauma? I wanted to look up, and I apologize, time to get away from me, and I'm working on it. As you can see, I'm a little more collected than the previous video, but I do appreciate all the support still. But I was a little embarrassed after I did it, and, then I had the accident, and now I've got more trauma. Let's think about things like this. How much time are we in this? I'm sorry, guys. This is like a really important topic to me because what I'm seeing in my own life, and since I have stepped away from the treatment that is unavailable here, that I look, if I needed those 30,000 milligrams of meds, I promise you I only take 200 milligrams, and that's between 5 pills a day. That's to help me sleep. So, I don't know. I couldn't hide the brain thing, but I'm doing a really good job apparently hiding the other. Anyway, does anybody else on here? I mean, I'd be really interested in hearing from anybody who's on here your thoughts on this. Like, why? I mean, trauma should be treated. Like, we shouldn't be. It's a re-victimization again, ultimately, which is again more trauma, right? And again, less trust. And if we sent the right people in the beginning to a traumatic event, maybe they can get into the proper trauma treatment, which can't be done on a one-on-one basis. It's done with a team because it can be very dangerous. And you have to be approved to do it. You have to be into a certain specific place, but there's pre-treatment as well. And yeah, but the proper medications will then be given to you while you're working on your trauma care. And if there comes points in times that team decides, okay, we may need to include this to get through this event. But the idea of trauma treatment, guys, and I have researched this because I recently, through an apprenticeship, was putting together a teen dating violence program. And basically, trauma is so what we have to so what trauma treatment basically is. My neck's getting cold, sorry. Basically what I know this is my podcast, so I'm okay with all this. Y'all just gonna have to it's cold. My neck's getting chilly. Anyway, there's realistic ways and steps of doing this, and there's ways of getting it all paid for as well. Specifically, like most of us have probably experienced one way, shape, or form of child abuse. There's probably a very small population that has not, and it doesn't mean they were directly nobody inflicted anything directly to them. They could have witnessed it. They could have been forced to do things with adults. They could have been forced to do things with the nanny. There's all types of different things. And a lot of this stuff is starting to come out now. But if we send trauma team instead of a mental health team, the trauma team is trained to deal with mental health that comes from a traumatic event. So, how does trauma affect everyone? Everyone responds differently. Don't think because if somebody tells you that they're really traumatized and they want to talk and you're a good enough person and you're able to listen, and even if you don't understand it, like some of releasing that trauma is just having people that we it's I figured it out recently because it's been explained to me. Like I have to be able to call people and say, I just really need to vent. I don't need advice. I just need to vent. That was taught to me recently, and I'm trying to be conscious to do it. And then there's also, we have to be mindful if we want to be heard too, that we have to respect the fact that, and I'm at fault of this, like really at fault for this, frequently, is to be mindful to make sure that if you have something that's important, that you say to the person that you're reaching out to, listen, I really, really need to vent. This could take a minute and it might be heavy. Do you have the time, or is this a good time? Try some of those tactics because I've started trying them since they were offered to me, and it's only been very, very recently. And it's sometimes it's the small things that can help us get through the events that make our lives so difficult. I had another friend that just told me, Dawn, just sit still and smile. And it made the difference. The verbiage he said a matter of one sentence. I'm not going to repeat the whole sentence, but the message was so simple and so clear that when I woke up this morning, I felt better, even without having my antidepressants. Like I just felt better. It kind of put things into place. And sometimes, you might need to ask people like, am I really am I really off here? Because trust me, I do that all the time. And I'm off. Well, I don't. I actually am not off. Pretty much, I am off. Nobody's perfect, but I do my best to make sure that when I give you guys information, is reliable and that you can count on it. I'm honored, honestly, at this point in my life, to even have the opportunity to open this platform up and to be able to part of my life and a lot of the traumas, emotions. We all know that the main emotion we show is anger. With the head injury, I've had a little bit of a problem with all my emotions. It's getting a little bit better since the fog left. But the bottom line is like our triggers are all so different, and it can be re-traumatizing. And you never know when or where it's coming from. But try and be aware of when it happens. Try and take some time in self. Pull over if you have to, and you have somebody in the car. Step out for a minute and just think about what it was that got you there, because I've had to go back so many times. I promise you, in the last since I started doing this, and apologize because I was out of line and I was wrong. But in the moment, that's all I had. And a lot of times we have to be aware that sometimes we have to care for self enough. When you have been traumatized, when you're a person who has experienced trauma in any type of depth, I'm learning that we as victims and survivors and families left behind, and those of us that have vicarious trauma from witnessing dead bodies and our kids being shot and our friends being killed and overdosing and there's just the suicide rates, all of it. We can, as those people, we can re-traumatize ourselves in learning. And I don't know how to tell you to get out of that one, because I am just recently, in the last 24 hours or so, realizing that in the times when I am able to control my emotional circumstances, that I still allow that comfort, where I go back to that peace, where there's always a little piece of me, right? That chaos, it's just, I don't know. I don't trust people who are nice. That's my uncomfortable giggle, but I don't trust people who are nice a lot. And I lose so many people in my life because of it. I have lost some of the most amazing people in my life because, yeah, because they were just, if they were nice, they had ulterior motives. Like, that's the life that was built for me. So don't be ashamed of, don't let anybody make you feel ashamed. I know I'm saying it and I'm at fault for it still to this day. Like, not necessarily ashamed. I've learned, I've worked to the point where I try to give myself 15 minutes. Right now, that's not an option because my head's kind of doing what it wants. But try and find things that figure out what your triggers are. Maybe if we work on that, I know it helped me. Realizing and being able to tell somebody that I just literally threw all their dishes out of their hand across their own house because I got stuck and couldn't. It was a noise. I just tossed it all across the house. I was like, we have to be aware of this. And sometimes at points we can't be. Like, if you're experiencing injury to the head, if you have, there's many other things that, spine, just a lot of different injuries that can, and trauma itself, actually, because trauma, if you've had overlapping trauma, you start to forget some of things that happen to you, because how can you, it happens to me all the time, but I don't trust the process, but I'm going to trust the process. And I just hope that all of you can, like, the saying goes, if it applies, if it doesn't apply, let it fly. I learned that from my kids where I work, and that's the truth. I'm speaking only of personal trauma experience of my own, but I did give you some of the facts. So if you're on here as someone who genuinely cares or has lost somebody or just wants to be in this field or this work with this community, you're in the right place. I can get a little ugly on here sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, because I kind of speak my voice, but yeah, I have a whole new respect for that. But please feel free to respond. Please message me if you have questions. There's a lot of things I'm restricted from right now, but and I am struggling with emails. If you're trying to email me, I also would like to let everybody know that we're using one phone number now. So if you need or would like to reach out or text, you can do that on 1302-669-1379. And it's OV ourvoicematters1@gmail.com. You can also feel free to go onto the Our Voice Matters Facebook page and inbox us. We're always happy to do it that way. If you would like to share a story on the Our Voice Matters Facebook page, is at the top of the page is the form that only I see that. And obviously the producer sees that. If you decide that you would like to pre-record your story, we will accept anonymous. We will be able to, we can blur you out. We can make it so that, yes, we can discuss how, whatever needs to work for you. We can use aliases, everything. We can handle it and make it so that if you are interested in sharing maybe 10 or 15 minutes, of your story, just because it might feel good to get it out, please. I don't need your name. I just need to know how to contact you, and what you would like me to call you. We can also, there's a form. On the form, there is a spot that you would like to use an alias. And of course, if there are visual things that you would like to have tended to, we are working to make sure that we can make that happen. Please also, I'd like to let you guys know now, and I will be putting a post up starting June. I am going to fall back to one show a month. And we will be filling in with other people's pre-recorded stories and possibly some other, good information as things go along. I'm going to extend that until the end of August. If things are able to go back to how they are now, we'll be back 2 days, 2 days a month. But I just thought I'd let you know that now. I will be posting it. Again, I really want to thank everybody that has shown their undying support for this podcast. I have no idea what I'm doing. I just know that I'm here for you, and together, no one suffers alone. And that's what we live by. Nobody needs to suffer alone. And I promise you, you're not crazy. If you feel crazy and somebody's trying to make you feel crazy, remember to try and pay attention to the source. And how many other people have they made believe they're crazy? You're not crazy, and you're not what happened to you. You can be fixed. We're not broken. I can say I am literally broken from head to toe right now, but we are not broken. Our souls are not broken. Together, no one suffers alone. I want to thank you guys for joining us once again. We will be back on, I apologize, this is my memory again. Let me pull my calendar up, and I would love to see everybody here. We will have a young lady who will be sharing her story anonymously on Thursday. Sorry, guys. Thursday, I believe it is the 19th. Thursday the 19th, I believe. And I hope to see you guys there. Thank you.